Hello, you dirty dogs, and welcome back to Sunday Vibes. No Joseph Tomlinson today. He's still getting gelatoed off his little head in Milan. So, stepping in, it's DJ Elab. Enjoy, by the by. First question comes from Ollie Trustler24, and he's asked, which young star are you expecting to blow up this season? Blow up, glow up. We're going to be approaching this from multiple angles. And as a man who's familiar with the process, Zach, why don't you kick us off with your answer?
I'm going to go for Marcus Rashford. In terms of glow up, he's finally got a decent barber. His hair looks on point. But in terms of improving, I think this season coming, he can definitely do that. It looks like Romelu Lukaku's going to be joining Inter Milan. Even Paul Pogba might be moving on as well. And so he can stop being put on the wing where he's not really being used to his best advantage and being put down the middle where he is at his best. I mean, he's been okay. He's only 21, let's be honest. He's been good during his time at Manchester United. He's been there for 3 years now. He's yet to score over 13 goals in all competitions during that time. But that's not bad for a 21-year-old. In the season just gone, he got 12 goals in all competitions and got 6 assists. And I think if you said that to Rashford at the start of the season, he would take that. And especially when he's taking about 3 shots per match as well. Like that's absolutely like a solid numbers, especially in the Manchester United side as well. That hasn't been that good. He's kind of been like the only bright light from them. So I think next season, if they do lose Lukaku as well, and I mean, I kind of feel they're going to keep Paul Pogba, but if they do lose Lukaku, this is kind of Rashford's time to try and get maybe kind of like more of the upwards to 20 goals in the season. And that's when he can finally start taking on the I am the man at Manchester United. I am the person to take us through this project. I'm the person to score all these goals. He does still need help, and he can't all do it by himself. So they still need to make a few more recruitments in this summer. But we've still got a little while. There is a month left. I do think Rashford kind of is that guy, though, who can improve over time and during this summer, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the answer's kind of multifaceted, isn't it? Because they need him to step up.
Yeah.
More importantly, so Romelu Lukaku, 15 goals in all competitions last season, and like you said, Rashford around the 13 mark. His numbers did spike in the Champions League, promising to see. 0.64 expected goals and assists per 90, which was actually the same as PFA Player of the Year nominee Sadio Mane. So maybe a bit unfortunate not to see those numbers increase a touch. Do you agree with this, Pato? Because, I mean, you've long championed the season he's just had. Do you see him reaching that 20-goal mark in the next couple of years?
Maybe not next year, but then again, if he takes penalties, say Pogba were to leave, then that would certainly bridge the gap a little bit. Yeah, I think Rashford last season went from being a prospect to being a very, very good player. Like, Rashford is now, he's clearly a centre-forward. He's not great on the wing, to be honest with you. I don't really like him there. And the fact that they seem to be shopping around Lukaku means that they're clearly willing to entrust him with that centre-forward role. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to play centre-forward for Man United, it's kind of expected that you're going to get 20 goals at some stage. But I think that there are actually tons of young players. Like, over time, the players we've talked about have got younger and younger. Like, football's getting a bit smarter in that regard. And I think the Bundesliga is obviously always the kind of locus for young players being developed into stars. So I think it'd be really exciting to see what happens to young talents at RB Leipzig under Nagelsmann. I think Tyler Adams and Haidara in the centre of the park will be really interesting. Yeah. Like, when you look at what Nagelsmann was able to get out of midfielders during his time at Hoffenheim without really having particularly talented ones. I mean, Grilic is good and Demirbay is good, but the rest of them are kind of like, they're sort of talented, but I feel like Nagelsmann just has some sort of magic about him. Yeah. And I think that Tyler Adams and Haidara will be two of the most talented midfielders he'll have ever got his hands on. And so I'm really excited to see how they are under him.
I mean, Demirbay was completing 3.1 key passes per night that season, which was the best in the Bundesliga. You know, better than players who
except for Hammers
have just headed to. I think what did he end up making? 10, 11 starts. So
maybe he got over 1,000 minutes.
Maybe it was in a given amount of minutes that I saw. But I think people that came close to him. The Dortmund's recent signing, Julian Brandt, I think he was on around 2.2. So 3.1 was an absolute colossal effort from him. Of course, he's gone to Leverkusen, not teaming up with Nagelsmann moving forward. So I think Nagelsmann will be fairly confident with the players he's got at his disposal. Like you said, we've got Jean-Kevin Augustin down here, who we've kind of been talking about for the last couple of years. I mean, his first season at RB Leipzig, 12 goals, 6 assists, 2.6 shots, 1.1 key passes per 90, 1.6 dribbles per 90. These were numbers that we were expecting, kind of given his pedigree, kind of given what he's shown at PSG in extremely limited minutes. However, the follow-on season, 3 goals. Still taking 2.6 shots, 1.6 key passes, 1.8 dribbles, shows there's a good skill set there, a very promising skill set, but didn't really rack up any significant minutes. I think it was around 650 in the league.
He has to displace Timo Werner, and then who's the other one?
Christian Poulsen.
Who also had a great season as well.
Yeah, they both played.
Poulsen.
Christian Poulsen. Who's that? He used to play for Liverpool. Yeah, I think he did, didn't he? Yeah, they both played around 2,500 minutes. I think even Cunha got 850 minutes. That's the player they signed from Sion, right? The kind of tricky right winger who can play anywhere along that forward line. So Werner was to leave, and Jean-Kevin Augustin can, potentially step into the fray under Nagelsmann. Might see more minutes. A bit more attacking fluidity, maybe a bit more interchange in that forward line, and he could really, start to rack up the numbers that we expected from him 2-3 years ago when he first appeared on our radar. So that's, talking at the Bundesliga, that's someone who's certainly on my radar. Also, given the turnover at Atletico Madrid, Tamar Lamar and Angel Correa are not necessarily young players now, 24, so coming out of that tag, aren't they? Coming out of being pigeonholed as young players, but there's certainly a level of expectancy on their shoulders moving forward, because Diego Costa, what was it? Minimal goal involvements, 1 shot per 90, pretty much finished physically, absolutely spent. And Antoine Griezmann is, he's going, where he's going, we're none the wiser to at this point. Is it still Barcelona? Is it PSG? Will Barcelona end up swapping him for Neymar? That merry-go-round is continuing. But Angel Correa and Tamar Lamar will have to create far more and generate far more output than they did in this season gone by. I think Correa 20 starts, predominantly played on the right. Tamar Lamar pretty much played in every game, only 3 goals, 3 assists. So, I mean, are you guys expecting more from players like that, or would you just see Atletico Madrid making big forward signings and alleviating that burden?
There's even more as well. I mean, you've got the defence of Jimenez. He's got to essentially step up and now be I would assume, the man that controls the line, and that has been Godin this whole time. So now he's got to step up and do that side of things. So the whole of Atletico Madrid is going to be an interesting project for the next season. You would assume they've got a few guys in their academies that they are going to trust, because I don't see why you would let go of so many players and let go of these players to different clubs and let them retire or move on, etc., or not give them contracts, without either being ready to buy new players who are young, or but make sure your academy has the right players there. I mean, they've also got Morata as well. He's obviously not young, but he's like 25, 26 now. But he's also going to have to step up as well. But Antoine, as you said, if Antoine Griezmann does move on, someone's going to have to take these goals, because Antoine Griezmann, his goal contribution this season has been insane. And although Alvaro Morata, he had an okay season when he went on there, he does seem to kind of be enjoying his football a lot more at Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, I think his expected goals and assists were like 0.6, right?
0.66. They were the same as Griezmann's over the course of the season. Plus, you imagine he'll take penalties if Griezmann were to leave as well. I mean, I'd like to see more from Correa, but it just seems at this point like Simeone is never really going to fully trust him. But Angel Correa a couple of years ago looked like he was going to be a genuine superstar, and I mean, like, he's still got the quality. Like, he's a very good dribbler, takes a lot of shots, actually works fairly hard in the press, as most guys do coming out of there.
12 goal contributions in 17-18. So it kind of feels like he's going backwards, but the talent still remains, right?
Yeah, and now that you think Lamar's there and Lamar's substantially younger, it kind of does feel like the chance might potentially be passing him by. He might be better off going on to a club where he'll be appreciated a bit more if Sevilla or someone could take him, given that Sarabia is going off to PSG.
Also, from Lamar, I think I just referenced
22.
22,
right, okay. He might be due to turn 23 soon, but they got him when he was very, very young. I think as well, it'll be interesting to see a player like Dennis Zakaria play in midfield at Borussia Mönchengladbach under Marco Rose. I think that will be super exciting because I think Dennis Akari is actually really quite an exciting young player, and obviously as well the development of Dortmund's youngsters like Diallo. I think is maybe the most talented of that back line. I actually think he's better than Akanji. I think Zagadou, it's a bit early to tell.
Do you think it's weird, the whole move then bringing Hummels back? Or do you think they brought him in for experience?
I think it's a really weird move. Like, I understand them wanting experience, but I don't see why you'd pay this much for experience. Especially as an experienced player can be 26, 27. They don't need to be 30, 31.
Yeah.
Like, and in Hummels' case, like, Hummels is an amazing passer, but I'm not sure he's that much better than say Diallo or Akanji. Like, it seems like a really odd one to me. I think actually experience can be had for less. They could have gone and got say Benatia, I reckon, for about half the money off Juventus. I think that actually there are a lot of older centre backs around who could have been really, really good for them. So it's very strange to me that they've forked out a huge amount of money for a guy who I'm not sure ultimately adds much.
It was 38 million euros, wasn't it?
Yeah, Bayern Munich made a profit on it.
Yeah,
which is nuts.
But I don't think Bayern could go out and buy someone of his calibre for 38. So I think it was strange of them to sell him, given some of the injury woes.
Oh, I don't know.
In their side, they've got Sula obviously. Jerome Boateng hasn't played over 20 games in a season for a very long time, has it?
Luka Hernandez, Pavard.
Yeah, Pavard.
Martinez.
Pavard is able to deputise at fullback as well. But I mean, a lot of players in Martinez. Jesus, he's been injury stricken for 4 or 5 years now. Like, I would have just kept the strength and in depth if I was Bayern, especially given how close Dortmund pushed them last season. Unless they've just got that confidence in Hernandez and Pavard. But
there's a few other players who I think could be really interesting.
I don't think it was that bad a signing. I think Hummels at Dortmund makes sense to me anyway.
I was going to say, speaking about Dortmund, made me think of this guy, Odegaard. Odegaard's season in the coming season could be insane. This could be the season that gets him into Real Madrid the following year. If he kills it, depending on where he goes.
I don't know if Real Madrid are ever going to give him a shot.
Really?
We were talking about on transfer review, and basically it looks like he's kind of whittled it down to 2 destinations, which is Bayer Leverkusen and Real Sociedad.
Sociedad,
and his agent, I think, is an ex-Sociedad player, but Bayer Leverkusen can offer him Champions League football. However, if he stayed in Spain, he'd appear on Real Madrid's radar, much more consistently. So he can impress on the domestic scene. Florentino Perez has said he's kind of drafted him back into his long-term plans, given the numbers he's put up in the Eredivisie. But I feel like this next year, he's probably a really good candidate for this question. It's vital for if he does have a future at Real Madrid.
Indeed.
I mean, given how many players are coming and going there at current, I probably wouldn't want to be there if I was Odegaard. So steering clear for another year while they kind of sort house makes sense. But Sociedad, I think they had the 12th worst attack. If memory serves me correctly, I think they only scored around 45 goals. But they've signed Alexander Isak, who scored 14 and 18.
He's another one. He's another one that could also
for like 10 mil. And if they get Odegaard on loan as well, then bravo to their recruitment department. Where do you think he would fare better, Pat? Like, if you're Martin Odegaard's agent, where are you saying go now? If any of those clubs.
Leverkusen, definitely.
100%.
Yeah. Leverkusen have a much more coherent side, more talent around you. Like, there's a guaranteed starting spot. You're playing in the Bundesliga, which I think is probably a better league for him. I don't really see the value of going to Sociedad at all. Like, I don't really understand why he'd go there. Like, it just seems like Leverkusen are a better side.
He fits that Brandt role as well, really, really well. Like, so when we did a bit of research, obviously for the podcast, I brought up Leverkusen, and essentially he would be this attacking midfielder that would kind of be in and around the box, just outside the box, and obviously he'd probably have to still let Kai Havertz do more of the kind of second striker stuff, but he would be perfect here. His dribbles completed is literally perfect for this role. And under the manager, he might even see him take the next step towards becoming that Real Madrid player.
He works really hard defensively as well, like which will fit in really well in the Bundesliga. Like to me, if I were him, I'd be like, right, I will go on loan to Leverkusen and I will hope that I impress somebody enough to get a move to a better Bundesliga side. That's probably the best career for him.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a very good point, highlighting his kind of defensive contribution, because that goes a little bit under the radar when people talk about Odegaard, because they imagine him as kind of this, well, either this wide attacking threat that likes to dribble into the centre, or as kind of a number 10 moving forward. But he's actually an a two-way midfielder. He's very complete. Well, he's certainly getting there. His defensive contributions, I think, around 2.5. Which, given that Julian Brandt moved back into a midfield 3, it would be great if he could offer Peter Bosz that moving forward. That work rate. I agree. I think Leverkusen is probably the right destination for him, and he can still be on Real Madrid's radar in the Champions League. Have we got any other candidates from La Liga? Chukwueze keeps springing to mind at Villarreal. Yeah. Have you wrote any scripts on him recently? Have you got any new knowledge on him?
Well, I mean, I really like Chukwueze. He's obviously exceptionally young. He's 19. He looks like a good passer. 2.5 dribbles a game. Good expected goals and assist numbers. Not yet exceptional, but he's a teenager playing in an extremely tough physical league. What you'd say is probably one of the 2 best leagues in the world. Villarreal are not a tremendous side. I think that Chukwueze, given that the rumoured price tag for him is about 30 mil, I think that would be a gamble taken for a lot of sides. If you're in Arsenal, for instance, and you're looking at Carrasco for 25, Ryan Fraser, God, or I don't know, potentially Thauvin as well, who's been kind of touted. I think that probably Chukwueze would represent the best gamble of those because he has everything physically, and it looks like he's got a lot of technical ability as well. So. Yeah, I mean,
nearly came up there.
Yes, I mean, Chukwueze, I think will probably be one of the candidates next season. And to be honest, he's one of the more exciting ones to watch as well. There are a lot of players who will probably turn into very good players next season, but who are not necessarily as exciting as he is.
I mean, I would rather say probably the Chelsea Youth Academy in general for next season.
Yeah.
To be quite frank, there is a few players.
So how do you feel? We've not got your feelings. Well, you obviously did this on Olivia Pod's Dodcast. The game's gone mad, which it hasn't come out yet, so I'm yet to hear it. But give us your kind of feelings on the Lampard situation, as it looks like it's about to come to fruition.
Yeah. So Frank Lampard does look like it's going to happen. For those who said I didn't want it to happen, I didn't want it to happen if we still had Sarri. But with Sarri moving to Juventus, this seems like the kind of the perfect time for him. He has a season where essentially, as long as we don't get relegated, it's okay, no matter what happens. But that is what it is.
You're giving him that much bandwidth.
I'll be honest.
I feel like if you're 8th around Christmas, people are going to be like, of course it was too early for
I can't. No. If we get 8th around Christmas, I think people will be fine. The aim for Chelsea next season is 8th to 6th. If we can get 6th place, that's absolutely fine. We've got a good enough squad to actually probably challenge for Champions League football. However, my kind of worrying aspect is I don't know whether Frank Lampard has enough experience to do that yet in his first season. What I think is a good thing is he is someone who has used a few of the youth players for Derby. He knows of the youth academy. He's got Jody Morris, who basically breathes the Chelsea academy and can bring those players in there. There's going to be a few interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I think if you were going to push for Champions League football, you're looking for an absolutely, a mesmerising season from Christian Pulisic, who could again be an answer to this question.
Indeed.
And I don't think he's going to. I mean, if he was to replace half of the goal contributions that Hazard brought, what was it, over 30 in the league, then that would be an extremely successful first season.
It's going to be an interesting year, in terms of Tammy Abraham up front. If he starts over Batshuayi, depends which one, because he's a great in the box finisher. As you said, if Pulisic can, if he can give us half of what Hazard gave us last year, what a season he'll have for the first year.
That
It'll
would be
unbelievable.
quite surprising.
It really would be. But again, you've got Hudson-Odoi coming back from injury. You've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming back from injury. You've got Mason Mount coming, which would be really interesting. I mean, I would like to think Tomori might even start. He's won Derby's Player of the Year under Frank Lampard. So who knows? I mean, especially with David Luiz now 32. You've got Christensen as well, that is still relatively quite young. He can come into the squad. Reece James, again, he's also injured, but you'd assume he would also start maybe getting implemented. So I do think this season, no matter really what happens, Frank Lampard can always go back and be like, hey, look, I couldn't buy any players. What do you want me to do? I've already got an ageing squad. I'm bringing in the youth. I'm bringing in the youth that also everyone else has told me to do, or has wanted Chelsea to do for a long, long time now. Maybe we aren't necessarily finishing in the top 4, but a top 6th place I'd take every day. I'll bite your hand off. And I also don't think Wolves and Everton and West Ham can get those extra 10 points that they'll probably need to battle us for a 6th place finish.
They need to win more games.
Yeah.
They need to win more games, and Wolves are just a bit too defensive. But they kind of had the bounces go against them last season. If the bounces go their way this season, then that can bridge that gap. Like, it's quite easy.
Especially if they make a few more kind of sensational signings. If they step up their pursuit for someone like James Rodriguez, which would be absolutely out of this world, then
I think he's gone.
To Napoli?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading an article like 3 days ago where I think it was maybe ESPN, and like 25% chance he goes to Napoli, and now it's looking pretty nailed on. Especially as Real Madrid continue to be linked with Fabian Ruiz. Again, we could talk about Dani Ceballos.
Oh God, I actually
it's
forgot
just
about
a
him.
whole scenario in itself. If we're talking two-way midfielders who have whose numbers are petering out at their current club. A player who could still make an impact at any top club in world football, I would suggest. Where do we see him moving if Zidane lets him go, at all? Given that they've just sold Kovacic now for 50, they're getting rid of Llorente, they're getting rid of Teo Hernandez. Like, they're starting to trim the fat, aren't they?
I don't think they
part
let
of
him
that
go.
process?
I don't think they let him go at all. I think they would be stupid to let
I
him
thought
go.
he had a really good season last year.
He was good last season, and for this year, like, that's the thing, right? Football teams have so many minutes available. Like, yes, they've got Modric, yes, they've got Toni Kroos, yes, they've brought in a bunch of players, but there are so many minutes now to give players that if Zidane is sensible about it, he can probably give Dani Ceballos enough minutes to keep him happy to stay at Real Madrid for this season. Maybe the year after, he might be like, okay, I want to be the starter now. I want to be starting to displace Modric or Kroos, probably Modric at that point. But yeah, I think it would be ridiculous to let Dani Ceballos go at this point, especially seeing his potential.
But we talk about Real Madrid, where ridiculousness is,
where Florentino Perez is in charge,
is a common currency. Where would you like to see Dani Ceballos move if he was to leave Real Madrid, or do you think he's better off staying where he is?
I think he'll stay where he is because he got a decent number of minutes last season and very good. His stats still looked excellent in that time. So I think he probably will play quite a bit, especially as we don't yet know what they're going to sign in midfield, if they're going to sign anything. Failing that, I mean, he'd be a pretty good fit for an Ndombele replacement at Lyon. That would be quite fun, and it wouldn't really require Lyon to change up their midfield at all. They could just play a midfield three of Toussaint, Ceballos and Aouar, and I think that would be quite exciting.
Aouar playing a lot more on the left this season than I realised, and I was kind of checking out his profile. 10-11 starts on the left, contributing to 14 goals, I think, over the course of the season. So far more attacking than I actually gave him credit for. But going back to the domestic scene there, we've got some other candidates. Morgan Gibbs-White at Wolves. He's looked brilliant every time he's featured. Nuno Espirito Santo playing. I mean, he's a central midfielder, probably not going to see many minutes in that position. Has played on the left when he's featured. Is there any kind of young British players other than Morgan Gibbs-White you can think of that kind of fit the bill? And you mentioned a lot at Chelsea already.
Chelsea, I think with Chelsea you'll probably see a lot more given chances.
Yeah.
And whether they take them or not is up to them. We'll see with that.
What about Manchester United? Do we see Angel Gomez getting any minutes? Mason Greenwood? We have to talk about United in the absence of Tomlinson.
I wouldn't be too surprised if Greenwood was to get obviously more minutes than he has this season. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer seems to like him a lot. He has absolutely killed it in the youth Champions League and the youth Premier League. He's got confidence as well.
Yeah.
That's what you need, especially to get into a Manchester United squad. The question is, though, as we said, if Rashford is playing up front, where is he going to play? He's going to be put out of the wing, and arguably, is that his best position? No, it's going to be playing striker. So maybe they have to change up formation to put him in, etc. Who knows? Trent Alexander-Arnold might step it up even more so somehow and become the best left back in the world next season.
What about Guendouzi at Arsenal, Pat? Is he ready to kind of... Next year, is he going to become the player that everyone kind of hopes and anticipates, or are we still kind of 2 years away from that, from him being the controller in Arsenal's midfield, being the go-to guy?
I mean, he was already pretty useful this season. He was 19. I mean, I wouldn't expect him to become like the finished article at 20 years old, but you imagine he's going to get more useful every season. He'll fill out a bit physically as well, and physically he's already pretty big. So I think that, I mean, against Man City, like the second time we played them this season, he was shrugging guys off and actually had a really good match, even though Arsenal didn't play well. So I think that I don't know. I think he'll develop a bit. I'd like to see Maitland-Niles get some minutes in midfield as well, and then a bunch of our youngsters who've been linked with moves to Dortmund and Bayern. You know, you've got Bukayo Saka, you've got Xavier Amici, you've got Tyrese John-Jules.
Even Nelson's coming back as well. He says he wants
Reece
to fight
Nelson.
for his place at Arsenal.
Yeah, well, I think he'll get. Well, he didn't have an insane season. He didn't get a huge number of minutes in the end. And supposedly, I think, fell out with Nagelsmann down the stretch. But he
just scored like 6 goals in his first 6 shots.
Yeah,
didn't
he
Everyone
just
was
kept
like,
scoring.
another one bites the dust in Germany.
But lots of dribbles as well, lots of chances created. I think Nelson will get some Europa League minutes this season, definitely.
There's the player that Liverpool just signed as well, the centre back, who hasn't joined, who hasn't signed though to be in the academy. He signed for the first team straight away, which might be an interesting thing, especially if they give him minutes. But it's quite.
Yeah, they could loan him though.
Don't know much about him, but they did say what I read. They said he's kind of at the same level Joe Gomez was when they bought him from Charlton. So I don't think he'll feature in their first team plans, but that they see him as someone maybe in a couple of years' time that can be challenging for first team position. He's a lot of teams are in for him as well. A lot of teams. So that's a pretty good coup for them. Shout out Oko Flex and Ewan Henderson at Celtic as well. So.
Big up. Go on, Ewan, mate. Lovely, man.
Do we have anyone else we want to throw into the equation?
Yeah, shouts to Kieran Tierney at Arsenal. have a good season, Kieran.
Just don't regard him as a young player because he's already, he notched up 200 appearances for Celtic. But if we're going to talk about, young players, I think stepping up pretty much straight away. If you sign him for 25 mil, do you have as much confidence as me that he's just going to kind of take to the Premier League like a duck to bloody water?
Barring an injury, yeah, I mean, physically he looks absolutely ready for a top league, doesn't he? And he's obviously got the technical ability as well. Plus, at this stage, we play Kolasinac, who's basically a winger, or we play Monreal, who is a guy who used to be good. Like when you look at Monreal, that's what you see. So I think Tierney would be a great signing.
I saw you watching a montage of
that was just funny
of Kieran Tierney on YouTube and just kind of laughing at some of the defending of Scottish football. Which
Scottish football is funny. Like so often Kieran Tierney will just beat a guy by just looking at him and then being like, nah, and he just knocks it 20 yards down the wing, and all these Scottish players are like, oh god.
I respect some of the challenges he puts in.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, though they are also the sort of challenges where you're like, at some point, Kieran Tierney breaks his leg for Arsenal.
Yeah, not conducive to a particularly long career. The way he cobs himself at people's feet, he just fucking loves it, doesn't it? He also has to ride an awful lot of challenges, which is when people kind of highlight the injuries that he's suffered in the SPFL, he has been on the end of some absolute horrendous tackles. And yeah, he's got the beating of guys so easily in that league right now that the only option really when he's on that left flank, when he's hogging that touchline, is to boot him.
But it's not just that, right? Yeah, in the Europa League and Champions League, he hasn't looked out of place.
He's sustained those numbers.
Even when Celtic have looked out of place, he has not. He always just looks like a guy who's not just like okay at that level. Like in the Europa League and in the Champions League, he looked like a good left back, which is saying something given that when he was in the Champions League doing it, 2 years ago against Bayern and PSG, he was 20.
Yeah, and he was our chief creator in the Europa League and the Champions League as well. I think racking up around 1.7 key passes.
I think it'd be the perfect signing for us.
A point of reference. I think Ozil was racking up 2 in the Europa League, so not too far off someone, an elite playmaker like Mesut, and that is just because of that ability to beat his man down that wing. He's got a decent little jink on him, not very dribbly. He's become a much more competent passer. Added a long ball to his game as well. I think he's firmly ready. But you guys just need to stop disrespecting us and offering like sub 25 mil, which I think is extremely reasonable already.
Respect is earned, not just given though. So Celtic need to do something, don't they?
Well, players are also given to Manchester City when they come in with 25 million. No. Why aren't they just doing that? Why is it someone else coming in? Absolutely pathetic. Anyway, one player you'd like to see? I guess you can't sign anyone. I was going to say one player you'd like to see at Chelsea.
Which of all the players that we've mentioned would you most like to get say 30 starts in the league of all their young players?
Of Chelsea? Hudson-Odoi.
But he can't get 30. He's going to be out for half the season.
Who? Probably Mason Mount then.
Right.
Probably Mason Mount.
Okay.
The issue Chelsea have, right, is there's a lot of attacking players for those. So if we end up playing 4-2-3-1, those three, there's a lot of options that we could be putting there.
Isn't it sad that someone's coming for Willian again for big money, and you probably would have sold him this time around.
If we could buy players,
but you can't buy players. Mason Mount, I mean, his the season Odegaard's just had at the test, very similar to the season that Mason Mount had
at the test, yeah.
So like he probably.
I think he's. I mean, it's a level above, right? The Odegaard season, much more creative, like much more
but
defensive
still contributed
work,
to 20 plus goals. I think his key passes were pretty similar. He was involved in the same amount of play. I don't think he's as good a player as Odegaard. I think he was replicating some of that output. Like I don't think many players, young players in world football, have that touch of magic that Odegaard has. But Mason Mount, I think he's earned his right to.
His shot locations are horrific.
Are they? To get at least kind of like.
So with derbies, that's my worry that Frank doesn't know how to just create good quality shots.
Almost like he's been a manager for a year.
Well, or he may never be a good manager,
Yeah.
but like he seems like a smart guy. So it would be okay if I said this on the podcast as well. It'd be nice if Frank failed, but in a respectable way. If he took
Let's just hope he succeeds,
you
innit?
to 7th.
But also, no one wants to see Frank suffer because he's just a bloody lovely guy. Kovacic's shot location was absolutely whack as well. Like I feel like only Eden Hazard could generate really high quality chances at Chelsea last season. Like their expected goals were the same as they were under Conte, and the defence was better under Conte. So like Maurizio Sarri at Napoli, like generating brilliant quality chances, but do you think it's going to be a bit more of a Chelsea problem next season than a Chelsea
forwards.
and a Lampard problem?
He had better forwards at Napoli. Like at Chelsea, he pretty much had like one really good forward, and then like got rid of all his other decent forwards. Like whereas at Napoli, he had like a really really talented front line and an incredibly talented midfield as well. At Chelsea, it was like. There was talent, but the midfield talent wasn't attacking talent, and in the front line it was kind of Hazard plus two other guys, and he gradually downgraded those guys over the course of the season. I think at Juve, actually, I think Bernardeschi could have an incredible season under him. Big fan of Bernardeschi. What do you think about Buffon coming back and letting Perrin go? That's it's pretty uninspiring for me. Why is Buffon coming back?
Apparently it's a Sarri call. Apparently Sarri wants him there in the changing rooms for his leadership role.
Feels like he's going to be absorbed into the coaching setup.
100%.
Oh no, that's what it is. The idea is he
100%.
comes back for a year and he becomes then a director of the club.
Not really read much about it. Was wondering your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think? I think we've covered a good breadth there. Who are you looking forward to seeing kind of either step up in terms of quality or just become your team's star player? Let us know in the comments below. Let's move on to Quickfire Questions. Before we move into Quickfire Questions, make sure you've clicked the subscribe button up there if you're not already a member of Team FD, and also the little notification bell, clicking that won't go amiss as well so you don't miss any videos. Right, first cue comes from Gervor Jagpal, and it's very topical. How can Newcastle move forward without Rafa, and does this make them relegation candidates?
They can't. That's the issue. I mean, some of the managerial targets they're aiming for aren't really giving you a lot of hope for them, if I'm being honest.
So they've been linked with Moyes. They've been linked with, Jose Mourinho is a pipe dream.
Yeah, never happened. Steve Bruce.
They've also been linked with Mikel Arteta. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, sure, 100%. But they've also not bought Rondon yet.
Can we just appreciate the busted slipping through my fingers as well, because that's an absolute banger.
I don't think I would sign Rondon, to be honest with you.
But Rondon was so important for them last season.
He was their player of the season, wasn't he?
And with Rafa Benitez as well leaving.
That's because of their style.
With Rafa Benitez leaving as well, there's several players, including Jose Perez, considering moving clubs already.
No.
I don't think they're not going to be able to get a managerial candidate as good as him. Yeah. I think history will be very kind to what Rafa Benitez has done with his squad. And does a manager like Jose Mourinho take a risk at a club like Newcastle, given the level of talent there right now?
Especially when his reputation at the moment is already rock bottom. I mean, Jose Mourinho's next move is international football.
So who would you pick? So
realistic
option.
Chris Hughton.
Chris Hughton, not bad actually.
God, what a horrible choice.
I mean, the Premier League experience.
Given the market,
but not good.
I mean, sure, Mikel Arteta
almost
is
took
fun.
down a much more talented Brighton side.
Mikel Arteta's fun, but Mikel Arteta won't go to.
Well, it's more that the squad's not a good match for him. I think you want a defensive kind of coach.
Right, let's caveat it with it has to be a realistic signing as well, not someone who you'd necessarily like to see there. So who do you think Newcastle will end up with?
Who I think they're going to end up with. I mean, I think that they could go for somebody like Puel, and I think that would be fine. Like, spend a bit of money around the attacking positions. Like, he will basically take a solid defence and keep it solid, and maybe get just enough out of them in attack. But realistically, they're going to need to, having let Benitez go, they're going to now have to spend a bunch of money, like in the market, in order to replicate what he can do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not optimistic.
Steve Bruce really wouldn't surprise me as well, especially because he's like good mates with the Mike Ashley board.
Steve Bruce should not be getting jobs in the Premier League. He's not good at it. He
Yeah,
should get
100%.
every job in the Championship where he's really good at it.
Total
Him and Neil Warnock,
He's good in the
absolute
Championship.
specialists.
Yeah, they're great in the Championship. They should just get really highly paid jobs where they like come in like the SAS, get you promoted, and then leave in the night. Like,
In the night, imagine seeing Warnock in the night. That'd be terrifying.
God bless his wife.
wow.
His pants up to his nipples.
Touching your toes.
I think Houghton's definite relegation. Moyes is borderline relegation.
Definite relegation.
Steve Bruce 100% relegation.
Is Newcastle in your relegation place here?
Claude Puel, at least he can put together a very competent defence.
But they probably would still get relegated
Yeah.
because the team is. Actually, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm pretty certain Sheffield are going to go straight back down. I think Villa will be heavy candidates to go straight back down. So I don't know. Like, it depends. There might just be 3 teams worse than them next season.
John Terry to go alone.
John Terry to go Newcastle.
No, I have no.
Oh, then I would love it if they got relegated.
I have no idea. Like,
It's a weird one, man.
Probably play himself.
yeah. I mean, let's move on from that.
Give it
enough time on Newcastle. Who do Spurs need to sign in order to challenge for the Premier League? And this comes from @Cran Louis.
I mean, they're already doing it, right? Like, Ndombele looks basically done. Lo Celso looks also like it's advancing very quickly. There's 2 players that we kind of said they needed to do. The only other kind of, the 2 other positions per se are a backup to Harry Kane, and another defender, centre back to replace either Vertonghen or Alderweireld.
Probably a right back as well.
Yeah, if Trippier goes.
But
Even
it's
if
like
Trippier
they're doing good things right now. I mean, the 2 players that they get in, if they were just to get those 2 players in, it wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
Like, they've done well. That is to.
But
That
I still don't think they'll challenge.
They would challenge. They might not win it.
I don't
They'd
know. It
challenge.
depends what you mean by challenge. I still think they'd be miles behind like Liverpool and City. But don't get me wrong. They'd be. We said this again on the podcast. Like they would go into a 3-team group with Man City and Liverpool rather than being in a 4-team group with Arsenal, Chelsea, and United.
I mean, if they had those players, we certainly wouldn't have seen the free fall that we did at the end of last campaign, 100%. Where they won 1 in 12 games. They're two-way players who can fill numerous holes, aren't they? How many? Okay, say they get them in. Christian Eriksen stays for 1 more year. The contract dispute rages on. How many more players are they away then? What defensive candidates make them?
Well, they're going to
bridge that gap
over the next couple of years.
even
they're
more
going
so.
Probably like 4 players.
You've got another 40-50 million to spend
on 4 players.
Yeah,
just
it's not
after
right.
that, because they've already spent 110 on an Ndombele.
I don't think that's enough.
And Lo Celso.
You need a quality right back, which is going to eat, 3/5 of that money.
Yusuf Attal?
and then like that'd be kind of fun.
That would
but then you need a centre back as well. Like, I just don't. I really like Spurs. I really like Pochettino. Like, I like the squad. I think they're making exactly the right moves in the midfield. I still think that they probably won't get near Liverpool or City next season.
Do you go to Ajax? Do you sign Tagliafico? How much would he cost?
He's also like
left back's less of
26,
a position of need, I think, than right back. I think
I'm confusing him with playing right back.
Yeah, I think Rose is still pretty good. He's still their best fullback anyway, Rose.
People need to remember as well, like they probably have to sign back two centre backs as well, because Alderweireld is not that young anymore. And if he does move for 25 mil in July, which they can't stop, and Vertonghen's like 33, like
something.
he's also kind of injury prone now.
I mean,
And they've got Sanchez, but they need the person to partner him.
Maniacs.
And, Foyth. So they
of
kind of need
maniacs.
another one as well. And the Reece, to be honest, the Reece is not young.
Well, they've been linked with Joachim Andersen from Samp. Like, that'd be interesting. They could go and get Malon Sarr off Nice. That would be interesting as well.
Denzel Dumfries from PSV, maybe?
Maybe, but I'm not sure I'd buy a full-back out of the Eredivisie unless I was absolutely certain they'd be great. I think
he wasn't particularly impressive against England, it must be said.
And there are a ton of right backs in Ligue 1 right now. There is Youssef Attal, there's Sofiane Alakouche. Like, there are interesting guys knocking around that you could get for less money.
Alakouche's making something ridiculous, like 9 tackles in the set.
I think it ended up closer to 6.5.
Okay.
But it was pretty brutal.
There's a
from
period where
fullback,
it's ridiculous.
And he's 20 and also has okay dribble and creative numbers, which means that
in a side as well. That's like
he looks like a guy who's going to be pretty interesting going forward.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think that's that answered. Next question is from Carabini_10. Where does David Silva rank in the all-time Premier League central midfielders following the news that next season is his last season in the Premier League? He said 10 years is enough for me. And the use of the word enough would
Yeah, that's
suggest
quite
that, that he's a little bit fed up being in England. I imagine do we see him returning to Valencia? Do we see him having the swan song of his career back at the Mestalla?
He said it previously, I can't remember what club it was. It's one of the clubs where it's to do with his son as well, which kind of makes sense. In terms of the question, definitely top 10.
Okay.
Definitely top 10.
Who are we ranking above David Silva?
Lampard.
Yeah.
Keane, Vieira,
Yeah.
Gerrard.
I would, sure.
Yeah, sure.
As
As a central midfielder.
Yaya Toure?
As a central midfielder, yeah. Like if we're calling him a central midfielder, but he isn't. Like he has been under Pep, he wouldn't be under anyone else.
I mean, there's not
As
many
an
of those,
attacking mid, maybe.
there's not many of those players that'd be better suited in a Pep system.
Yeah.
No,
True.
no.
So if we're talking, players that
System,
match up
yeah.
with the best manager, then I think he certainly jumps above a few of them. But all-round game puts him at what, maybe 6th, 7th?
Yeah.
I don't know. All-round game, I'll
top
put him
10.
lower because he's never done much defending. But attack-wise, like obviously an amazing player. Like if you made like your team of the Premier League and it was a 4-2-3-1, then he would be a very strong shout for the number 10.
Okay, fair play. Right, last question then in Quickfire Questions before we move on to personal is from Amici SZN. Which under 23 English players have the highest ceiling? Let's have a one-word answer. I'm going to say Maddison.
This is easy. Sancho.
Sancho.
Or Hudson-Odoi, might as well back him.
Yeah, correct answer there is Sancho, annoyingly, from PBS.
It was actually a very good shout.
Yeah,
Or Alexander Arnold.
just completely forgot about him. Personal questions then, moving on. No, I'm not going to ask what's the worst game you've ever seen in person. I'm pretty confident we've had that before. Sorry, Nathan_Tall. From Room Cobra, FD Legend. What is the one thing you enjoy that everyone seems to hate?
Ed Sheeran. I also haven't listened to him in a while.
That's the
But
great
Great shout.
there was one moment where, there was a period where I was like, I enjoy Ed Sheeran, and everyone was like, what are you on about? It's like disgust in people's eyes.
Usually it's quite a good path to go down there. Chad Kroger, Hero. What a song that was. Everyone hates Nickelback, don't they?
Okay. I'm trying to think what else. What do I love that people hate?
Do you know what? I don't
difficult
understand when
question.
people say they like the smell of petrol stations or the
Oh
smell
yeah,
of
I
petrol.
I love
agree.
the smell of
I- see,
petrol.
I- But that's like
No, I like the smell of
Marmite. You
petrol.
either like it, or you don't.
I like the smell of
I hate
petrol,
it.
man. It's
Makes
great.
me feel travel sick, even if I'm walking.
Makes me feel
I love
like-
the smell of petrol.
I'm doing drugs. It's mental.
Sure.
You don't know anything about that either.
I don't.
Right. Have you come to a conclusion?
difficult.
This is the most
I
I've
don't
seen you
know.
ponder all episode.
It's
You're like,
genuinely really hard. Like I'm not sure. I'm sure there are tons of things, but I don't know.
do you do anything that your wife finds particularly annoying?
Well, sure, but like they're not really things I enjoy
They're like-
doing. It's like not unloading the dishwasher.
Well, I quite
Oh, I
enjoy
love it.
what my girlfriend hates me doing is when I pull my boxes down before I get into bed and I step out of them and I leave them in like a perfect
You go to bed naked.
But yeah, of course, a perfect figure of 8, like my boxes on the floor, and she's like, "Why do you do that?" And I'm just like, I like the stepping out, like day over.
This is not how I
Straight into
interpreted
bed.
this question. I interpreted it much more as like, like food, books, like films.
I'm just giving you some, lateral.
Not I pull down my boxes and
Lateral
go
thinking.
to bed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
All right, fair play.
Jesus.
Let's move on to Josh
was a good
Blade.
question.
It was a good question. Josh Blade 2004. What's your perfect hangover food?
I don't eat. I can't. If I eat, I feel worse.
Yeah.
I feel so much worse.
Can't eat till 6 o'clock. What about you?
Even late, like 9, and even then it's like a one cornflake I've taken out of the
How
box.
good is the feeling though when your appetite comes back and you're just absolutely ravishing a crisp sandwich?
Because every time I'll eat to
Yeah.
try and make myself, I'll be like, oh yeah, eating
Yeah.
will help me, and I do it. I'm like, what have I done?
That
I don't know,
false sense of security.
Remember we went to Absurd Bird after like the
Oh,
Christmas party, and I was like, that was great. I was really into that. But always, what you want is just like salt and then sugar. So I
Yeah.
always find something like what I actually had on Monday. My wife had laid in for me, knowing I was coming back from a stag weekend. She got some pork scratchings in the house, so I nailed those. And I had some mango, and so I replenished all my sugars and my salts. And I was
That's a
like,
good actually
and
combo.
I felt fucking invincible for about 45 minutes, and I thought I was going to be sick.
Do you know what's a little cheat code for them as well? The rehydration sachets from Boots. They're actually very good if you drink them before you go to bed. Replenishes all those.
You know what the perfect
mins.
cure is? Make yourself sick.
No, that's when you feel sick. That's not a cure
No.
for a hangover.
It does.
Yeah.
Just make yourself sick anyway.
No, nonsense.
Helps all the time.
Right, last question then. These are some good personal questions actually.
Last
From Tamish_Bahal. Favourite PC game? PC
PC
specific,
game.
Oh,
not PlayStation.
Either there's two here.
Go on.
There's either the
Jesus.
one that came with Windows 7, where it was the pinball machine. Do you remember playing that one?
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do
Yeah,
remember
it was
that
like-
one.
Yeah. And
Oh
it's- and
my
it's the
God.
The arrows.
Yeah.
They were
That's
the.
so
They were the
good.
Bang. That game I played for ages. Or RuneScape. When I was younger, mate, I absolutely banged out RuneScape. 10-year-old
Yeah.
10-year-old Jella was an absolute
Or that like
Rune legend.
Elder Scrolls, like that worked quite well on PC. But actually, like, surely it's got to be something like from the early days of like LAN shoot 'em ups, like Counter-Strike.
I never really
Counter-Strike or Quake 3. Counter-Strike was actually.
Wolfenstein.
I remember like playing Counter-Strike and just the satisfaction of shooting a friend in the head was just like,
James Wayne was like borderline professional at Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
yeah, well, he's.
What about the
all
one?
your business.
What about the one where you had land, and you would like go take over people's
Oh,
kingdoms?
you mean like what, like Command
Age of
and-
Empires.
Age of
Command and
Empire.
Conquer.
Age of Empires,
And
they
Command and
were-
Conquer.
Command
Red
and Conquer
Alert.
Red Alert.
Oh yeah.
Back
Or
now.
Yuri's
Suck it,
Revenge.
Diesel.
It's sick.
Yuri's Revenge. Oh
Yuri's
my god, I've
Revenge.
not heard
Yeah.
that phrase in years.
Yuri, he'd like pop up and he'd be like, the mind is quicker than the eye. And you'd be like, shut the up, Yuri.
But they actually
So
had
good.
like proper like C-list actors doing the segments in between, and it was absolutely fucking superb.
That was great.
And then you just get Tesla coiled to death. Other PC games. I think I already answered this. I was a big fan of like the theme hospitals. No, theme hospital and theme parks, where you
What, like
basically
roller coaster
Oh,
tycoon.
you created your own hospital, created your own
Sims.
I never played Sims.
mini clips.
Mini
Just the
games.
website mini clips when you were George Bush, and it was
Fireboy
like,
and
pretty sure
Vodka.
that was the premise. I'm pretty sure that's where the film White House Down came from. That game where you were George Bush and you were shooting your way out of the White House.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Absolutely
There was
superb.
another website called Cool Math Games, which
Cool
Cool math
This is what
games.
someone had made, so
Yeah.
that when your teachers came around, they would see, oh, it's Cool Math Games. When in reality, it was just normal games on that website.
I remember
It
our
was banging.
primary school, like on its computers, had the Magic School Bus games. It was like they go to space or some shit, and it was great because it was just like the one where you could like dick about when you were in the school library when you were like 7.
Mate,
Good times.
oh,
Yuri's
We've got too
Revenge.
far.
man.
Yuri's Revenge.
Yuri's Revenge.
One of my friends loves Yuri's Revenge so much that he had a party and everyone had to come as something he's into, and one of my friends came as Yuri. It's so good.
I think Age of Empires or Yuri's Revenge clinches it actually. What is your favourite computer game? Because I mean, we were keener than that on that question than any other. So hopefully it'll set the comments ablaze.
Doom.
Let us. Oh, Doom.
Ooh.
Doom.
I mean, Football Manager's got to be thrown.
movie.
in.
Oh, hang on. What about
Champions
Four.
Half-Life? I take everything back. It's
Never played
Half-Life. Half-Life is like maybe the greatest game
I never
ever
really
made,
got into Half-Life,
except
just
for Jack
making-
and Daxter 2.
Making circles in walls.
Oh mate,
Like, get over
Half-Life
it.
was fire. You had a crowbar.
Am I thinking of the right game? I don't
I think you're thinking of like Red Faction or something.
Portal was
Portal.
very good.
Stupid game.
No.
Tomb Raider as well, always unnecessarily
Yeah.
hard.
I was going to say unnecessarily pervy, but I mean it's fine.
Both.
Infuriating. Anyway, that's that finished before we get back into it. That's Sunday Vibes for another week. Send in your questions next week on Twitter because I'm sure there'll be a transfer feeding frenzy by then. Goodbye.